his cleaning cart past the pharmacy section. 11:42 p.m. Most of the closing crew had already clocked out, leaving him alone to finish the final sweep of the cavernous Costco market. The store manager, Davis, had left 20 minutes ago with his usual parting words, "Don't forget to set the alarm," before the heavy employee exit door had clanged shut behind him. Alex preferred the solitude. After 8 hours of customer service smiles and dodging shopping carts, the empty store offered a peculiar peace. Just him and 150,000 square feet of merchandise standing in silent formation. Until tonight, he paused near the seasonal section, where Halloween decorations created a macabre display of plastic skeletons and synthetic cobwebs. Something felt different. The air seemed thicker somehow, pressing against his skin like an unwelcome touch. Alex shivered despite the temperature-controlled environment. "Hello." His voice sounded smaller than intended, swallowed by the vastness of the warehouse ceiling. No response, of course. He was being ridiculous. The wheels of his cart squeaked as he turned down aisle 13. Household goods. Towers of paper towels and cleaning supplies lined either side, creating a corridor that seemed to stretch longer than he remembered. The overhead lights at the far end flickered once, twice, then stabilized. Alex frowned. Maintenance had replaced those bulbs just yesterday. As he moved deeper into the aisle, the temperature dropped noticeably. His breath formed a slight vapor in front of him, impossible in the climate-controlled building. He stopped, listening. The usual ambient sounds of the store, the low hum of refrigeration units, the occasional settling of shelves, had fallen away. The silence felt deliberate, as if the building itself were holding its breath. Then he heard it, a whisper so faint he might have imagined it. "Alex." He spun around, heart hammering against his ribs. The aisle stretched empty behind him. "Who's there?" His voice cracked. "Store's closed. You need to leave." No response, just the distant buzz of fluorescence. Turning back to his cart, Alex noticed something that made his stomach drop. The bottle of cleaning solution he'd placed in the upper basket had moved to the opposite side. He was certain he hadn't touched it. Coming. This time the whisper seemed to emanate from everywhere and nowhere, slithering between the shelves of laundry detergent and fabric softener. Alex abandoned his cart, backing away slowly. A box of trash bags toppled from the highest shelf, hitting the floor with a sharp crack that echoed through the empty store. Alex jumped, his back colliding with a display of dish soap. Several bottles crashed to the floor, the liquid spreading across the polished concrete like spilled blood. His walkie-talkie crackled to life on his hip, startling him further. But instead of a voice, a harsh static poured from the speaker, punctuated by what sounded like words buried beneath the noise. "Aisle 13. Find you." The temperature plummeted further. Alex could see his breath clearly now, pluming in front of his face. The lights flickered again, longer this time, plunging the aisle into momentary darkness. When they returned, Alex froze. At the far end of aisle 13 stood a shopping cart. It hadn't been there seconds before, and it was moving, slowly, deliberately, toward him, pushed by invisible hands. Alex backed away from the approaching cart, his shoes slipping in the spilled soap. The cart continued its inexorable advance, wheels squeaking rhythmically against the concrete floor. Each metallic screech felt like fingernails dragging down his spine. "This isn't happening," he whispered, reaching for his phone. The screen remained black, dead, though he'd charged it just hours ago. The cart stopped abruptly, 10 feet away. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed, their intensity fluctuating as if struggling against some unseen force. In that pulsing half-light, Alex noticed something inside the cart, a dark mass that shifted and undulated like living shadow. Fight or flight instinct kicked in. Alex chose flight, turning on his heel and sprinting toward the front of the store. His footsteps echoed through the cavernous space. each slap against concrete amplifying his panic. He glanced back over his shoulder. The cart wasn't following. It had disappeared. Alex slowed, chest heaving, at the junction between the clothing section and electronics. The store felt different now. The familiar layout suddenly disorienting, as if the very architecture had subtly rearranged itself while he wasn't looking. The ceiling seemed lower, the aisles narrower, shadows pooled in corners where they had no business being. "Get it together," he muttered, trying to regulate his breathing. There's a logical explanation. A logical explanation for whispering voices, for moving carts, for the unnatural cold that now permeated the building. Right, the security office. That's where he needed to go. He could call for help, check the cameras. Alex oriented himself and headed toward the back of the store, passing silent displays of televisions. As he walked by, each screen flickered to life for a split second, displaying nothing but static before going dark again. He pretended not to notice. The employee hallway leading to the security office stretched before him, illuminated by emergency lights that cast everything in a sickly green glow. The corridor seemed longer than he remembered, the door at the end impossibly distant. As he walked, the sounds of his footsteps changed, becoming muffled, as if the floor beneath him had transformed from concrete to something soft and yielding. Halfway down the hall, Alex became aware of another set of footsteps, not echoes of his own, but distinct, slightly out of sync. Someone was walking behind him. He froze, the hairs on his nape rising. The other footsteps continued for 2 more paces before stopping as well. Slowly, Alex turned around. At first, he saw nothing. Then, as his eyes adjusted to the dim light, he discerned a figure standing about 20 feet away, a silhouette of a person, though something about its proportion seemed wrong. It stood perfectly still, a darker patch against the shadows. "The store is closed," Alex said, his voice stronger than he felt. "You need to leave. Now." The figure tilted its head at an unnatural angle, as if considering his words. Then it took a single step forward. Alex caught a glimpse of its face, or rather, where a face should have been. Instead, there was only a smooth, featureless expanse like skin stretched over a mannequin head. Yet somehow, despite the absence of eyes, Alex knew it was looking directly at him. "What do you want?" he whispered, backing away. The figure lifted one arm, pointing toward the center of the store. Its finger was too long, the joint bending in the wrong direction. Without warning, every light in the hallway extinguished simultaneously. Alex gasped, momentarily blinded by the absolute darkness. When the emergency lights sputtered back on seconds later, the figure had vanished. Heart pounding, Alex fumbled with his key card, swiping it against the security office door with trembling hands. The lock clicked, and he practically fell inside, slamming the door behind him. The small room, with its bank of monitors and control panel, had never looked so welcoming. He locked the door and collapsed into the swivel chair, running shaking hands through his hair. The security monitors displayed different sections of the store, all empty, all normal. No shopping carts moving on their own. No faceless figures stalking the aisles. "You're losing it, Collins," he muttered, rubbing his eyes. Maybe he was overtired. Maybe the energy drinks he'd been downing all shift had finally fried his brain. The radio on the desk crackled. "Alex, are you there?" The voice was familiar, Meredith from the bakery department, but she'd left hours ago. Alex hesitated before picking up the receiver. "Meredith, I thought you went home." "I forgot something," her voice replied, tinny through the speaker. "Could you meet me in the bakery? I need help. Something felt wrong." Meredith never forgot anything, and she certainly wouldn't have come back at midnight. Plus, employees had to sign back in. You would have seen her. "I'm kind of busy with closing," he said cautiously. "Please, Alex, I really need your help." Her voice sounded strange now, the cadence slightly off, as if someone were reading her words from a script. Alex glanced at the monitor showing the bakery section. Empty. I can see the bakery on camera. Meredith, you're not there. A long pause followed. Then, I'm hiding, Alex. It's in there with me. Please hurry. The radio went dead. Alex stared at the bakery monitor. Nothing moved. He flipped through other camera feeds. Produce, meat department, the front entrance. All empty. Until he reached the feed for aisle 13. The figure stood directly beneath the camera, its featureless face tilted upward, staring directly into the lens. Though it had no mouth, somehow Alex could sense it was smiling. The monitor flickered, and the image changed. Now the figure was standing in a different aisle. Another flicker. It was by the pharmacy. Flicker. The food court. Flicker. The employee hallway, just outside the security office door. A soft knock sounded against the metal door, so gentle it might have been imagined. Alex, came Meredith's voice, no longer through the radio, but muffled by the door. Let me in. I need help. The doorknob slowly began to turn. Alex lunged for the desk, grabbing the heavy metal flashlight stored in the bottom drawer. He positioned himself against the wall beside the door, knuckles wide around his makeshift weapon. The doorknob continued to rotate, metal grinding against metal, until the lock prevented it from turning further. Then it stopped. Silence hung in the air, dense and suffocating. 10 seconds passed. 20. The only sound was Alex's ragged breathing and the faint electrical hum of the security equipment. Meredith, he ventured, immediately regretting breaking the silence. No response came from beyond the door, but on the security monitor showing the hallway outside, there was nothing. No figure, no Meredith, just an empty corridor bathed in sickly emergency lighting. Alex's gaze darted between the monitors. Each screen showed vacant aisles and silent departments. Whatever had been there moments ago had vanished, or was hiding. He needed to get out. The employee exit was on the opposite side of the store, past the bakery and through the loading dock. If he could make it there, he'd be free of this nightmare. Steeling himself, Alex cracked open the security office door. The hallway remained empty, though the air felt charged, like the atmosphere before a thunderstorm. He stepped out, flashlight raised like a club, and began moving toward the main floor. The store had transformed in his absence. The ceiling lights now operated at half strength, casting everything in a murky twilight. Shadows stretched longer than they should have, and the familiar displays of merchandise had taken on sinister silhouettes. The massive warehouse space felt both cavernous and claustrophobic simultaneously. Alex moved quickly past electronics, where every screen now displayed the same image, static with occasional flashes of what looked like a face pressing against the glass from inside. He refused to look directly at them. In the clothing department, mannequins stood in unnatural poses, their plastic limbs contorted at impossible angles. Had they always been positioned like that? Alex could have sworn one turned its head slightly as he passed. Just get to the exit, he whispered to himself, a mantra to keep moving forward. A crash from the kitchenware section made him jump. A single metal pot had fallen from a display, rolling in a wide arc before coming to rest at his feet. As Alex stared at it, a second pot toppled, then a third. Soon an entire cascade of cookware was falling, creating a cacophony of metallic clanging that echoed throughout the store. Alex ran, no longer caring about stealth. As he passed through housewares, bed sheets unfolded themselves from their packages, billowing like ghosts in a non-existent breeze. A tower of pillows collapsed behind him, and he heard something heavy dragging across the floor in pursuit. The bakery loomed ahead, its glass cases containing the day's unsold pastries. Alex slowed, remembering the radio call. Was Meredith really here? Or was it a trap? Meredith, he called out, voice barely above a whisper. The bakery lights flickered in response, and something moved behind the counter, a dark shape ducking quickly out of sight. Who's there? Alex demanded, raising the flashlight higher. A low, gurgling sound emanated from behind the display case. It might have been laughter or something drowning. Alex backed away, choosing instead to skirt around the perimeter of the bakery. As he passed, every loaf of bread on the shelves simultaneously split open, as if cut by invisible knives. The smell of fresh-baked goods turned sour, rotting in accelerated time. The produce section was worse. As Alex hurried through, fruits withered and blackened in their bins. Vegetables secreted fluids that pooled on the floor, forming dark puddles that seemed to follow his footsteps. A display of apples burst into swarms of fruit flies that spiraled around his head in dizzying patterns. "Stop it!" Alex shouted, swinging the flashlight through the cloud of insects. His voice sounded wrong in his ears, as if speaking underwater. The flies dispersed, revealing something standing at the far end of the produce section. The faceless figure had returned, now wearing what appeared to be a Costco employee vest. It raised one elongated arm and pointed toward the meat department. Alex turned to flee in the opposite direction, but froze as the overhead announcement system crackled to life. "Attention Costco shoppers," came a voice that was almost, but not quite human. "Special midnight sale in aisle 13. Alex Collins, please report to aisle 13 for customer assistance." The announcement repeated, the voice deteriorating with each iteration until it devolved into a series of clicks and guttural sounds no human throat could produce. Alex sprinted toward the loading dock, past towering shelves of bulk items. As he ran, products launched themselves from the shelves. 50-pound bags of rice, gallon jugs of olive oil, cases of water bottles, crashing to the floor inches from his fleeing form. The temperature plummeted again. His breath clouded before him, and frost began forming on metal surfaces. The concrete floor became slick with ice, nearly causing him to lose his footing as he rounded the corner toward the loading dock. What he saw there stopped him cold. Every shopping cart in the store, hundreds of them, had been arranged in a perfect circle around the employee exit door. They were packed tightly together, forming an impassable barrier of metal. And seated in each cart was a dark, hunched shape, head bowed as if in prayer or slumber. As Alex approached, every head slowly lifted in unison. Each shape revealed itself to be constructed of merchandise. A Costco rotisserie chicken for a head, brooms for limbs, clothing draped over boxes to form torsos. These grotesque mannequins stared at him with eyes made from various fruits, watching his approach with unblinking attention. The circle parted slightly, creating a narrow path toward the exit. An invitation, or another trap. From behind him came the sound of slow, deliberate footsteps. The faceless figure was approaching, its movements jerky yet purposeful, like a marionette controlled by an unskilled puppeteer. Alex stood frozen between two nightmares. The cart circle of merchandise monsters ahead, the faceless entity behind. His flashlight flickered and died, plunging him into the dim, emergency-lit gloom. A whisper drifted to his ears, seeming to come from everywhere at once. "We've been waiting for you, Alex. Your membership has been upgraded." The overhead lights failed completely, and darkness consumed the store. In the pitch darkness, Alex's other senses heightened to painful acuity. The chill air carried the scent of rot beneath the store's usual blend of food court pizza and cleaning chemicals. Something rustled, the sound of hundreds of merchandise mannequins shifting in their carts, the metal frames creaking in concert like a deranged orchestra. Alex fumbled with the dead flashlight, striking it against his palm. A spark of light rewarded his effort, illuminating a small circle around him. The beam wavered, threatening to extinguish at any moment. The faceless figure stood 3 feet away, close enough that Alex could see the texture of its skin. Not skin at all, but a surface that resembled the waxy cardboard of bulk packaging, folded and pressed into a human shape. Its blank face tilted, regarding him with absent curiosity. "What do you want?" Alex's voice cracked. The figure's head jerked, an unnatural motion like rewinding footage. When it spoke, the voice emerged not from where a mouth should be, but from the PA system overhead, booming through the entire store. "We want what everyone wants at Costco, Alex. Value." The word value echoed, distorting into something that sounded like vessel before fading. Behind the figure, something massive shifted in the darkness, a towering shape that brushed against the ceiling 30 feet above. The emergency lights sputtered, offering brief glimpses of an enormous construct built from merchandise. Pallets formed a skeletal framework, wrapped in plastic sheeting that glistened like wet skin, topped with a head crafted from stacked television boxes. Arms made from connected shopping carts extended from its sides, scraping against the floor with a sound like metal being tortured. The mannequins in their cart circle began to rock back and forth, their improvised heads swiveling to track Alex's movements. "You've been chosen," the faceless figure continued. "The Costco requires new management." Understanding dawned with horrifying clarity. The night manager position had been vacant for weeks. Davis had mentioned finding a replacement soon. "I'm not interested," Alex said, backing toward the narrow path between the carts. "I quit." The figure took a fluid step forward, suddenly too close. "Nobody quits Costco. Costco is forever." Alex swung the flashlight with all his strength. It connected with the figure's head, which collapsed inward like a smashed cereal box. For a heartbeat, Alex felt triumph, until the damaged head reformed, cardboard and packaging material flowing like liquid to reconstruct its featureless visage. The mannequin army surged forward, abandoning their carts. Dozens of misshapen bodies constructed from merchandise shambled toward him, their movements disjointed yet purposeful. Behind them, the colossal figure, the store itself given form, began to advance, each step shaking the foundation. Alex bolted through the gap in the cart circle, heading for the exit door. His hand closed around the metal push bar, but it wouldn't budge. Locked. Of course it was locked from the outside. Turning back, he found himself surrounded. The merchandise mannequins formed a tightening ring, their fruit eyes glistening in the dying flashlight beam. The faceless figure stood at their center, arms spread wide like a conductor before an orchestra. "You cannot leave," it intoned. "The store is closed." Alex's mind raced. If he couldn't escape, perhaps he could fight. But how do you fight a store? His gaze fell on the emergency fire alarm on the wall beside the exit. If he could trigger it, the sprinkler system would activate. Water. These things were made of cardboard and paper products. He lunged for the alarm, but a mannequin intercepted him, a grotesque assemblage with a watermelon head and pool noodle limbs. It wrapped its flexible arms around Alex's torso, squeezing with surprising strength. More converged, grasping at his clothes, his hair, his skin with hands made from oven mitts and toilet brushes. Alex fought through the press of bodies, kicking and punching a construct that felt no pain. The faceless figure watched him passively as the struggle unfolded. "You will join us," it said. "Become part of the Costco family. Benefits include eternity." The massive entity behind it raised its shopping cart arms, poised to crush Alex beneath their weight. In desperation, Alex reached into his pocket and pulled out his employee badge. The plastic card caught the dying flashlight beam, reflecting light across the faceless figure. It recoiled slightly, as if the reflection caused discomfort. Light. They didn't like light. Alex broke free from the mannequin's grasp and sprinted toward the center of the store, the horde pursuing in a cacophony of shuffling products and squeaking wheels. The massive construct couldn't navigate the narrower aisles, forced to lumber around the perimeter. He reached the main electrical panel near the manager's office, fumbling with his keys to unlock the metal cabinet. Behind him, the faceless figure glided between aisles, closing the distance with unnatural speed. "You cannot stop what has already begun," it said, its voice now coming from directly behind him. "The transformation is inevitable." Alex's fingers closed around the main breaker switch. "Let there be light," he whispered, and threw the switch upward. Nothing happened. The faceless figure's head tilted in what might have been amusement. "We control the store now, Alex. All of it." A cold, cardboard hand closed around Alex's throat, lifting him off the ground. The faceless figure brought him close to its blank visage. "Look deeper," it whispered, and suddenly the smooth surface of its face rippled, revealing a void beneath. Not emptiness, but a window into somewhere else. Alex glimpsed an inverted Costco, where shoppers moved in reverse, their faces blurred and elongated. Beyond them, endless aisles stretched into infinity, stocked with products that writhed and pulsated with unnatural life. "This is the true Costco," the figure said, "the one between worlds. And you will help us expand our membership." Alex's vision darkened as the grip on his throat tightened. In his peripheral vision, he noticed something. The emergency backup generator switch, still in the off position. His fingers stretched, barely reaching the small lever. With the last of his strength, Alex flipped the switch. The generator roared to life somewhere in the building's depths. Lights blazed throughout the store, harsh fluorescence flooding every corner with merciless brightness. The faceless figure shrieked, a sound like tearing cardboard, and released Alex, who collapsed to the floor, gasping. All around, the merchandise mannequins writhed in the sudden illumination, their makeshift bodies beginning to smoke and disintegrate. The massive construct bellowed, its plastic skin melting under the intensity of the industrial lighting. The faceless figure backed away, its form wavering like a mirage in desert heat. "This changes nothing," it hissed, its voice distorting. "We are Costco. We are everywhere. We are eternal." Alex struggled to his feet, advancing on a retreating figure. "Not tonight," he said. "Tonight, you're closed for business." The figure's body began to unravel, strips of cardboard and packaging peeling away like molting skin. But even as it disintegrated, it laughed, a horrible, knowing sound. "Midnight comes every night, Alex Collins," it said, its voice fading, "and we'll be waiting in aisle 13. As the last remnants of the faceless figure dissolved into scraps of packaging material, an unnatural silence fell over the store. The fluorescent lights hummed with almost aggressive normality, as if nothing extraordinary had occurred beneath their sterile glow. Alex stood alone in the center of the main aisle, surrounded by debris that already seemed to be changing before his eyes. What had moments ago been clearly merchandise mannequins now looked like ordinary fallen products, scattered by some mundane accident. Alex's throat burned where the thing had gripped him. When he touched his neck, his fingers came away with small flecks of cardboard embedded in his skin. Proof. He needed to document this before everything transformed back to normalcy completely. He pulled out his phone, surprised to find it working again. The screen showed 12:01 a.m. The entire ordeal had lasted just over 20 minutes, though it felt like hours. Alex moved quickly through the store, snapping photos of the aftermath. The circle of abandoned shopping carts, the scattered merchandise, the strange residue left behind where the massive construct had stood. With each passing minute, the evidence grew more ambiguous. By the time he photographed the melted plastic near the loading dock, it looked more like a routine spill than the remains of a supernatural entity. The images on his phone reflected this transformation. What he'd captured clearly as a hand-shaped tangle of packaging materials appeared in the photo as nothing more than random trash. Reality was rewriting itself, erasing the night's horrors. Alex made his way to the employee exit, finding it unlocked now. He pushed it open, breathing in the cool night air with desperate relief. The parking lot stretched before him, empty except for his own car and the silent shipping dock. He could leave, drive away, never come back. But what about tomorrow night? What about whoever would be closing then? Alex hesitated at the threshold, then reluctantly turned back. He needed to secure the building, make it safe for the morning crew, and find any evidence that might convince someone in authority of what had happened. The journey back through the store felt surreal. Everything appeared normal now. No moved items, no frost, no rot. Even aisle 13 looked ordinary, just household goods neatly arranged on metal shelves. The only anomaly was a single Costco membership card lying in the middle of the floor, its glossy surface reflecting the overhead lights. Alex picked it up cautiously. It looked exactly like a standard membership card, except the photo showed a blank, featureless face, and the name printed below read, awaiting assignment. He slipped the card into his pocket and continued his inspection. In the bakery, he found something else out of place. A single loaf of bread with a perfect slice down its center, despite all other loaves being intact. In electronics, one television screen displayed static for 3 seconds before returning to the standard demo loop. Small signs, remnants, whispers of what had occurred. By the time Alex reached the manager's office to retrieve his belongings, exhaustion had overtaken adrenaline. His hands shook as he collected his jacket and backpack. A yellow post-it note stuck to the desk caught his attention. It hadn't been there earlier. In handwriting that looked almost, but not quite, like Davis's, it read, "Night manager position, still open. Consider the benefits package." Alex crumpled the note and shoved it into his pocket alongside the strange membership card. As he turned to leave, his reflection in the office window stopped him cold. For just an instant, his face seemed smooth and featureless before resolving back into his familiar features. Outside in the parking lot, Alex sat in his car, unable to start the engine. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through the photos he'd taken. Most showed nothing unusual, just random messes that any overnight worker might find. But the final image, taken of his own reflection in the office window, made his blood freeze. Where his face should have been, the photo showed only a blank oval, smooth and featureless. Alex's fingers trembled as he deleted the image. He started the car and pulled away from Costco Market, watching in the rearview mirror as the massive building receded. The illuminated sign continued to glow in the darkness, a beacon promising value, quality, and quantity to all who entered. As he turned onto the main road, his car radio switched on by itself, tuning to static before a voice emerged from the white noise. "Thank you for shopping at Costco," it said in a voice that was almost, but not quite human. "We hope to see you again soon. Your membership never expires." Alex switched off the radio with a violent jab. The silence that followed felt like a temporary reprieve rather than a victory. He drove home through deserted streets, knowing that the store would open tomorrow as if nothing had happened. Employees would stock shelves, customers would fill carts, and no one would notice anything amiss. Except perhaps in aisle 13, where the lights might flicker a little too often, where products might not stay exactly where they were placed, where, if you listen carefully in the quieter moments, you might hear something whisper your name. 3 weeks later, Alex pushed his shopping cart through the sliding doors of Costco Market. He hadn't planned to return, had even drafted a resignation email the morning after his ordeal, but he never sent it. Something kept drawing him back, a compulsion he couldn't explain or resist. He'd returned to work the following evening, finding everything pristine and ordinary. Davis had commented on the unusually clean state of the store, apparently noticing nothing of the previous night's chaos. When Alex tentatively mentioned strange occurrences, his manager had simply laughed. "This place gets to everyone eventually," Davis had said. "All that empty space after closing makes the imagination run wild." Now, on his day off, Alex navigated the Saturday afternoon crowds with practiced ease. Families sampled free food at demonstration stations. Employees in their red vests restocked shelves and checked membership cards. Everything appeared normal, mundane, safe. Yet Alex noticed things others didn't. The way certain shadows lingered a fraction too long after someone walked past. How merchandise occasionally shifted position when no one was looking. The subtle temperature drop near aisle 13 that made shoppers unconsciously hurry their pace. He paused near the bakery, watching an employee arrange fresh loaves. The young woman, Caitlin, according to her name tag, worked with mechanical precision, her movements slightly too fluid, her smile never quite reaching her eyes. When she turned to help a customer, Alex glimpsed something peculiar on her neck, tiny flecks that might have been cardboard embedded in her skin. "Can I help you find something?" a voice asked behind him. Alex turned to face a man in a manager's vest. His name tag read Thomas, night manager. I'm good, thanks, Alex replied, studying the man's face. It seemed oddly smooth, the features slightly blurred, as if viewed through frosted glass. Thomas smiled. Excellent. Enjoy your shopping experience. He walked away, his gait too even, his shoes making no sound against the concrete floor. Alex's hand instinctively went to his pocket, where he still carried the strange membership card he'd found. He'd tried to dispose of it multiple times, tossed in the trash, burned it in his sink, even shredded it in the store's document destroyer. Each time, he'd later found it back in his pocket, pristine and unchanged. His shopping complete, Alex approached the checkout lanes. The cashier scanned his items with robotic efficiency, never making eye contact. When she reached for his membership card, Alex hesitated before reluctantly handing over his regular one. The scanner beeped in rejection. "I'm sorry, sir," the cashier said, her voice oddly flat. "This card appears to be expired. Do you have another?" Alex felt a chill run through him. "That's impossible. I just renewed it last month. Perhaps you have another card?" she insisted, her smile fixed and unnatural. Slowly, Alex reached into his pocket and withdrew the mysterious card with the blank face. The cashier's eyes widened slightly in recognition before her professional mask slipped back into place. "Thank you, Mr. Collins," she said, scanning the card. The register displayed membership status, pending upgrade. Your total comes to $113.13. As Alex paid, he noticed every employee in the vicinity had stopped what they were doing, their attention fixed on him with unsettling intensity. Even some of the customers seemed to pause, their movements becoming synchronized, their heads turning in unison to watch him. Outside in the parking lot, Alex loaded his purchases into his trunk with trembling hands. As he returned his cart to the collection area, he spotted Davis walking toward the store entrance. Alex raised his hand in greeting, but his manager looked through him as if he weren't there. Confused, Alex approached him. "Hey Davis, got a second?" Davis continued walking, unseeing, unhearing. A chill ran down Alex's spine as he realized other people in the parking lot were similarly ignoring his presence, navigating around him without acknowledgement. Heart racing, Alex hurried back to his car and grabbed his phone. He opened the camera app and switched to selfie mode. Where his face should have been, the screen showed only a smooth, blank oval, featureless, unformed, waiting. A text message notification appeared. Night manager position still available. Your new office is ready in aisle 13. In the reflection of his car window, Alex saw his face one last time. His actual face, with fear-filled eyes and trembling lips, before it smoothed over, features melting away like wax under heat. He felt no pain, only a strange sense of inevitability as his transformation completed. The membership card in his pocket grew warm, and when he removed it, he saw his photo had updated. A blank face now, but with the faintest suggestion of features beginning to form. Alex turned back toward the store, feeling its pull like gravity. Behind the vast windows of Costco Market, hundreds of shoppers moved in their predictable patterns, unaware of what waited in the shadows between the aisles, in the spaces between moments. He belonged there now, part of the inventory, part of the family. Alex walked back through the sliding doors as they opened in welcome, disappearing into the fluorescent lit expanse that stretched toward forever.